Welcome to the Beyond You podcast, where we have real conversations about healing, trusting yourself again, and building the kind of relationships that actually feel good. I'm Samantha, and if you've ever felt like you're just going through the motions, like you're doing all the right things but still feeling disconnected, you're in the right place. Because here we go beyond the surface, beyond the hurt, beyond the patterns that keep you stuck. So take a deep breath, get comfortable, and let's get into it. Hey, beautiful. Today we're diving into something that has had me in my feelings all week just thinking about it. The difference between a soul tie and a trauma bond. And I know there's been this talk about soul ties and trauma bonds before because, listen, I know some of you are in situations right now where you can't let go of someone and you're wondering, is this deep spiritual connection I feel real? Or am I just, trauma bonded to this person? And that's not just a valid question, it's a necessary one. We live in just a time where everything gets labeled as divine timing and soul connections, but sometimes what we're calling a soul tie is actually a nervous system being addicted to chaos. And sometimes what feels like destiny is just dysfunction that's familiar. And I'm not here to dismiss the reality of deep spiritual connection because they absolutely exist. But I am here to help you tell the difference between a connection that's divinely orchestrated and one that's trauma-centered and trauma-created. Because your heart deserves to know the difference and your future depends on you getting this right. So grab your journal, settle in, and let's get real about what's actually connecting you to the people you can't seem to release. Oh, this is going to be a good one. But when we start off, I just like to give an example that I have lived before because I do this not only because I just love what I do, but also because I have gone through these situations in my life. And so let me tell you about a connection I had that I was convinced was a soul tie, but turned out to be one of the most intense trauma bonds of my life. And I don't ever give names out here, so we'll call this guy Marcus, okay? And from the moment we met, it felt like lightning. I just was smitten by this person, not just attraction. I'm talking about that instant recognition, like I know you from somewhere deep type of feeling. We could talk for hours about everything and nothing and just sitting there, and the chemistry was undeniable when we were together. The world made sense in a way it never had before. But when we were apart, when I tell you it was chaos, pure emotional chaos. I would spend days analyzing our last conversation, wondering what I did wrong when he'd just go quiet. I'd feel physically sick when he'd be distant. Like my body was going through withdrawal, right? And I could talk about this like detox feeling when you notice there's someone that's like this. I found myself constantly walking on eggshells, trying to get back to that magical feeling we had when things were good. And because the highs were so high, because when it was good, it felt like everything I'd ever dreamed of, I convinced myself this was meant to be. I tell my friends, y'all don't understand, right? Like this connection is different. This is spiritual, right? We're meant to find each other in every lifetime. It's just for stuff that we tell ourselves when it comes to this person. And you can tell that you're like off and on with the person constantly. And when I tell you, girl, I was quoting past things. I thought I was just doing something. I was talking about destiny while this man had me crying in random places, grocery store, parking lots, because he left me on red for 3 days and just wouldn't talk. The wake-up call came when I was really just doing the work, and my own therapist asked me something that stopped me in my tracks. Samantha, does this connection make you feel more like yourself or less like yourself? And I had to sit with that uncomfortable truth that when I was with Marcus, I became a version of myself I didn't recognize. I was anxious, insecure, constantly seeking validation, walking on eggshells. I was so busy trying to maintain this soul connection that I'd lost touch with my own inner peace. That's when I realized what I thought was a soul tie was actually a trauma bond disguised as destiny. My nervous system was addicted to the cycle of chaos and relief, distance and reunion that he provided. It felt intense, so I called it love. It felt consuming, so I called it spiritual, but intensity isn't intimacy, and chaos isn't connection. Real soul ties don't leave you questioning your worth. They don't have you feeling crazy or unstable. They don't require you to abandon your peace to maintain them. So, right? Let's break this down, because we have to understand the trauma bonds versus soul ties, because I think there's a lot of confusion about what these terms actually mean, and social media hasn't helped with the clarity. Okay, a trauma bond is when you become emotionally attached to someone through shared experiences of stress, drama, or emotional intensity. Your nervous system literally becomes addicted to the cycle of chaos and relief that this person provides. It's not about love, it's about your brain chemistry getting hooked on the highs and lows. I need you to hear me. It gets hooked on the highs and lows. That's why when you leave, it feels like that withdrawal. So the trauma bonds often form through just that intermittent reinforcement, right? So when someone they're hot and cold, so you never know which version you're getting. Shared trauma or crisis situations that create artificial intimacy. There's cycles of conflict and resolution that create an addictive pattern, and emotional intensity that gets mistaken for deep connection. But a soul tie, on the other hand, is a deep spiritual and emotional connection that feels destined or meant to be. But here's the key difference here. Real soul ties elevate you. They bring out the best version of yourself. They feel peaceful and grounding even when they're intense. Okay? So true soul ties are characterized by a sense of recognition and familiarity that feels comforting but not chaotic. There's connection that enhances your sense of self rather than diminishing it. There's growth and healing that happens naturally through the relationship, peace and stability, even in the midst of deep intimacy. Now, here where it gets tricky for many of us, especially if we grew up in a chaotic environment. If your early relationships were filled with drama, inconsistency, and emotional intensity, your nervous system might mistake trauma bonding for love because that's what familiar looks like. And for my women of color listening, there's an extra layer here. We might have learned to associate struggle with strength, chaos with compassion, emotional intensity with depth. We might have been taught that love is supposed to be hard, that anything worth having requires suffering for. These narratives is what keep us stuck and really confused with the difference. But understand that divine love doesn't ask you to suffer. Spiritual connection doesn't require you to lose yourself. Soul ties don't make you feel crazy. They make you feel more sane, more grounded, more like the person you're meant to be. The intensity you feel in a trauma bond comes from your nervous system being activated. The intensity you feel in a soul tie comes from your spirit being awakened. And trust me, once you learn the difference, you'll never confuse the two again. Okay? So I want you to just really we're going to go into the signs of trauma bond, okay? Because we're just getting a little more specific here, because I really want you to know what it actually looks like, because sometimes we're in it that we can't really see clearly, okay? Because trauma bond does feel like a drug. So when I say this, because I'm starting off with my first one, you feel addicted to this person, number one. Because when you feel addicted to this person, you think about them constantly, you check their social media obsessively, feel physically sick when they're distant. This isn't love, but this is your nervous system at withdrawal. Number two, the relationship is a roller coaster. High highs and low lows with very little middle ground. When it's good, it's amazing. When it's bad, it's devastating. You're constantly either flying or crashing. Okay? Number three, you feel crazy around them. You second guess yourself constantly, question your own reality, feel like you're losing your mind trying to figure out what's happening between you. Number four, you make excuses for their behavior. They're just going through a lot right now. They're not good expressing emotions. They have trust issues from their past. You're constantly justifying why they can't show up for you properly. Next, you feel like you need to earn their love. You're constantly trying to prove your worth, walking on eggshells, performing to get their attention and affection. Next, the connection feels urgent and desperate. There's a sense of, I have to make this work, or I can't live without this person. It feels like life or death rather than joyful and flowing. Next, you lose yourself in the connection. You abandon your needs, interests, and values to maintain the bond. You become a smaller version of yourself. Next, You stay despite being unhappy. You're not actually happy in this connection, but you can't leave because the intensity feels like love and the chaos feels like passion. Then, the last but not least, your friends and family are usually concerned. The people who love you are worried about how this relationship is affecting you, but you dismiss their concerns because they don't understand the connection. If you are recognizing yourself in these patterns, please, when I tell you, hear me with love. What you're experiencing is your nervous system's response to inconsistent reinforcement, not a spiritual connection. And there's no shame in that. Our bodies and brains are just trying to make sense of confusing emotional experiences. Okay, so now we're going to get into what a real soul tie feels like, because I want you to know what to look for and what you actually deserve. So when you're in a soul tie, soulmate situation, just being connected with a person that feels healthy and good, it feels like coming home. There's an immediate sense of comfort and familiarity, but it's peaceful, not chaotic. You feel safe being yourself. Next, number 2, you become a better version of yourself. This connection brings out qualities in you that you love about yourself. You feel more confident, more grounded, more aligned with your values. Number 3, the growth feels natural. You both inspire each other to grow and heal, but it doesn't feel forced or desperate. The growth happens organically through love and support. Number 4, there's mutual respect and reciprocity. Both people are equally invested in the connection. There is give and take, support and care flowing both ways. Next, communication feels easy. Even difficult conversations flow naturally. You can be honest with each other without walking on eggshells. Next, your peace is maintained. And we're all about peace here. Even when there are challenges or conflicts, your inner peace remains intact. You don't feel like you're losing your mind or your sense of self. Next, it enhances your other relationships. A real soul tie doesn't isolate you from friends and family. Instead, it makes you a better friend, daughter, sister, because you're more fulfilled. The next one, it feels sustainable. There's no urgency or desperation. You trust that what's meant to be will be. You don't have to force or chase a connection. Next, your intuition is calm. Your gut feeling is peaceful and sure, not anxious and questioning. You know this is right without having to convince yourself. And last, it aligns with your values. This person and this connection support who you're becoming, not who you were when you were wounded or traumatized. A true soul tie might be intense, but it's the intensity of recognition and love, not the intensity of chaos and addiction. So it feels like destiny, but it also feels like choice. It's just that nuance with both of those, destiny and choice. Like you're both choosing each other freely, not because you're compelled by unhealed wounds. Okay? And so I know just hearing all this can be quite a bit. So really take this in. I hope you wrote notes when just talking about this as well. Now, I want to talk about something that's particularly relevant for my Black and brown just women listening, because our communities have deep spiritual traditions around soul connections, especially in the Christian community, and I don't want to dismiss that. Many of our cultures recognize that some connections transcend the physical realm, that souls can recognize each other across time and space, that wisdom, and this wisdom is real and it's beautiful, but sometimes understanding of these concepts gets mixed up with our unhealed trauma, and we end up calling trauma bonds spiritual connections. I've had clients tell me, but Samantha, my grandmother always said that when you meet your person, you'll know, and I know with this person. And I want you to know I honor that wisdom while also asking, how do you feel when you're with them? Does knowing them make you feel more like yourself or less like yourself? Because real spiritual connection always leads to expansion, never contraction. True soul recognition always leads to peace and does not lead to chaos. Divine love always makes you feel more worthy, never less worthy. Sometimes what we're calling, whether a karmic connection or twin flame, is actually just unfinished business with your own trauma. Sometimes what feels like past life recognition, people call it, is really present life patterns we haven't healed yet. And listen, I am not dismissing the possibility that some difficult conversations might be, whether they're karmic or meant to teach us something, but if the lesson is accept being treated poorly or sacrifice your peace for love, then I don't believe that's a divine lesson. That's a trauma pattern. God, universe, whatever you want to put in there, doesn't send you someone to break you down. God doesn't give you a soulmate who makes you feel crazy, or if you believe in ancestors, didn't survive everything that survived for you to accept chaos as love. Whatever is it that you believe in, I believe they'll just make you want to just suffer when it comes to love. True spiritual connection just lifts you up. It helps you remember who you are and not forget. It brings you closer to your highest self, not further away from it. So how do you know in the moment whether what you're asking is soul recognition or trauma activation? Here are some questions to ask yourself. First, I want you to check in with your body. I want you to ask yourself, how does your nervous system feel around this person? Calm and grounded, or activated and anxious? Okay, and then when you're also checking in with your body, ask yourself, do you feel energized after spending time with them or drained? Next, is your sleep peaceful when you're connected to them or disrupted? Then I want you to check in with your behavior. Are you acting like yourself or like a version of yourself you don't recognize when you're around them? Are you maintaining your other relationships and responsibilities or neglecting them? Lastly, are you making decisions from a grounded place or from fear and desperation? Then I want you to check in with your growth. Is this connection inspiring you to heal and grow, or keeping you stuck in your old patterns? Next, are you becoming more of who you want to be or less? Also, is this relationship supporting your goals and values or pulling away from them? And then I want you to check in with your peace. Do you feel centered and calm when you think about this person, or anxious and obsessive? Can you imagine your life without them and still feel okay? Or does that thought send you into panic? Next, are you trusting the process or trying to control the outcome? And lastly, I want you to check in with your support system. What are the people who love you saying about this connection? Are you hiding parts of this relationship because you know others will be concerned? And lastly, do you feel proud to introduce this person to your family and friends? Trust your answers to these questions. Your body, your behavior, and your peace will tell you everything you need to know about whether this connection is healing or harmful. Because, here we are breaking free from trauma bonds. And if you realize that what you thought was a soul tie is actually a trauma bond, first of all, breathe, okay? Understand you are not stupid, you are not weak, and you are not broken in any capacity. Trauma bonds are incredibly powerful because they literally hijack your brain chemistry. But here's how to start breaking free. I need you to get support. This is not something you should try to heal alone, only because this feels like actual drug when leaving, right? Whether it's therapy, coaching, a trusted friend, you need people who can help you see clearly when your vision is clouded. Next, you have to, I know it's going to be hard. Go no contact if possible. Trauma bonds are like addictions. You cannot heal from an addiction while you're still using. If you can't go completely no contact, limit contact as much as possible. Next, focus on nervous system regulation, whether that's practice grounding techniques, meditation, breath work, anything that helps your nervous system remember what calm feels like. I know when I've been in sessions and teaching people just what it feels like to be calm on their body, I consistently tell them it's like a repeated practice. That's why we keep doing it every session and learning what that feels like, because it's going to feel new and foreign within our body at first. So I need you to be able to be practicing those things, those grounding techniques, those meditations, those breath works, to be able to really help your body to feel calm and at peace. And then I'm going to have you reconnect with yourself. Spend time doing things that remind you who you are outside of this connection. Reconnect with your values, your goals, your joy. This is going to be important when you're getting and rediscovering just who you are. And next, I want you to be patient with the process. Breaking a trauma bond feels like grieving because in many ways you are. You're grieving the fantasy of what you hope this connection could be. Okay, so remember, breaking free from trauma bond isn't about leaving a person. It's about healing the parts of you that were attracted to chaos in the first place. I want you to know that whether you're dealing with a soul tie or trauma bond, you deserve love that feels peaceful. You deserve connection that enhances your life, not complicates it. You deserve relationships that make you feel more like yourself, not less. If this episode helps you gain clarity about a connection in your life, trust what you're feeling. Your intuition is wise and your peace is sacred. And if you know somebody you're thinking about could use this, please share it with them. We really want to get out to more people to really help people get into authentic relationships. Don't sacrifice either one for a connection that keeps you feeling unstable. And if you're realizing you need to let go of someone you thought was your person, I see you. I know that grief is real, but please remember, letting go of what's not meant for you creates space for what is. Before I go, I want you to ask yourself, does this connection make me feel more like myself or less like myself? And trust that answer. If this episode gave you clarity that you needed, please share it with someone who might be struggling with the same question. Please make sure to make comments down below. I love hearing your comments if anything resonated with you. And remember, real love doesn't make you feel crazy. It makes you feel free. Please understand that you are amazing in doing this work and being here with me. I love you. I see your beautiful heart, and I'll talk to you next week.